All right, so everybody, welcome. Thank you for being patient. We were just waiting on our other guest to show up, and he's about to log on. But so I just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you for registering and being here. This session is called Running in Activism. It's part of a series that we've been doing in Aire Libre, running as part of an effort talking with different athletes and activists. Basically trying to understand the power of running to inform and change our perspective and create transformation. And right now we want to show you a video about an idea that many people are pushing for right now, and that's unity. And we traveled to the Tohono O'odham Nation in southern Arizona, which is an area where the ancient running trails of the Tohono people were divided by the border wall. The border signifies division, you know, and us and them. But this run symbolized the basic idea that really we're all one people, and at times we're too distracted by our appearances and our narratives to see that. But you know, it was how something as simple as a run has the power to transform those preconceptions that we have, and just this kind of invisible power that you have when you run with other people. So that's what this little video is about. It's a short 3-minute video, so I'm gonna show it now.
Los primeros en haber estado en esta tierra fueron los Tohono. Para ellos no había ninguna división. Running was, in many ways, very much a part of who you are as an author.
We started Aire Libre 3 years ago. We're creating these experiences where we can bring runners in touch with indigenous communities that live around Mexico and South America, in mostly like more remote places. How far are we right now from Mexico?
Right where we stand, about probably 26 miles, maybe a full marathon. Yeah. And that's where we ran from the last time you guys came. We started there at the border and ran this way.
It's time for you guys to run. Why are you standing here? Go!
We ran to send messages. Our runners were utilized in war and in times of hardship, but also in times of festive times, you know, when celebrations were going on, ceremonies that brought people together. You know, these ceremonies predate any lands, any borders, any countries that we see today. But now, you know, with this growing line in the sand, it is difficult. It is difficult to make that connection and why running is so important. As runners sharing miles, there is no difference, there is no division. It's like we're just one human race, and I think that's what we really need to emphasize.
So that was our video. It's called Lines in the Sand. That was our trip to the Tohono O'odham Nation with with Anthony Francisco, our second guest, who's having a little bit of trouble connecting, but Jordan, are you there? Can you listen? Can you hear me? Jordan?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. So if you don't mind, we're just I'll get started because Anthony Francisco had some trouble logging on. So I basically, I wanted this to be a conversation, and especially just setting a little bit of background. Right now is a challenging time for a lot of people in the U.S. and around the world, especially where racism and injustice that has really long existed all over the world is amplified by the media and technology. But what is also amplified is the way that large groups of protesters are responding, the way that people are organizing in extraordinary ways to create movements that are capable of really inspiring many people to join them and demand justice and their voices heard. So, with that context, I wanted to frame a little bit of our conversation, and I just wanted to give a little background on Jordan. Jordan's an activist and an athlete. She's a citizen of the Kul Wicasa Oyate, the Lower Rural Sioux tribe, and she's an advocate for Indian country and all people. She's nationally known for a grassroots organization for anti-pipelines, climate justice efforts, Change the Name, Not Your Mascot initiatives, and also the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls initiative, and also for Native youths. She's worked on grants and project management, policy, blogging, and organizing for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations in the areas of environmental sustainability, access to quality healthcare, and Violence Against Women Act. So, Jordan, thank you for being here again. So I just wanted to ask, with your background, what kind of, we saw in the video right now that the Tohono, for example, and Anthony can speak more on this when he joins, but they have a long culture of running. They used to be messengers. The territory that the border now crosses used to be their traditional running paths, and they have a real cultural connection to running. Can you speak to me a little bit about your community and your culture and the connection to running?
Yeah, for me, I mean, where I come from, the Lakota people, we're the horse nation. Our people, rode on horses, and that's how we delivered our messages. But culturally and for my family, I'm a fourth generation runner. And I have so many cousins that are runners and aunties and uncles that are runners. And it's something that really connects us to who we are as Indigenous people and connects us to the lands, our history, our roots. And so I can speak to that more just in the sense of it connects me to my family. And it feels like it's something that I was born to do, even at times in my life where I felt like I didn't want to run because it was a lot of pressure. Having, a successful grandfather and a mother training for the Olympic trials, it was a lot of pressure growing up, but it's something that I truly believe I was born to be doing. And I feel like now with the new purpose that I have with running and connecting it with activism and the things that I'm very passionate about, it just feels, more meaningful than ever.
Great. Thank you. Hey, hi, Anthony. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So this is Anthony Francisco. He's our second guest, joining us via car.
Yeah. I had to get in the back seat, but then unfortunately there's the sunlight coming in behind me.
Okay, no problem. So I just want to give a little bit of background on Anthony. So Anthony's a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation in southern Arizona, and he lives in the Comobabi community based in the Shucktoak Mountains. He's an All-American athlete and has won several multi-state championships. He returned home with a goal to inspire his community through running, cultural traditions, and sound practices of traditional healing. Anthony's also worked on various youth projects with the Boys and Girls Club and the nonprofit Tohono O'odham Community Action. And he's helped set up several local marathons to empower his community to grow in a healthy and productive manner. Anthony, I just asked Jordan about her cultural context with running. How running has been important to her and in her background. And I just wanted to ask you the same question. We just saw the video, the Lines in the Sand video, where you appear in it, running around the territory. So can you just talk to us a little about the meaning running has for the Tohono O'odham?
Yeah, definitely. First and foremost, it's just something that I believe we've always viewed our runners as messengers, and messengers, they carry, they're very important. They carry so much, whether it be in something that's coming up in the community. It could be a celebration, or even maybe times of war or things like that. So historically, there was runners were seen as a very high in the community. But as we've gotten, the lives have just evolved and changed. It still has its meaning. It's just practiced a little differently. Today we have runners that help to carry loved ones to either be there for funeral services, or just all these different things that help to connect us to the land. And that's what it always has done for me. It's always connected me back home, being here, growing up, off and on the reservation, but just hoping to always try to inspire my community. I think that's always been my goal in mind.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
hear you perfect. So, okay, so that's interesting. And so both you and Jordan, you also talked about a connection to the land. So, with the word, thinking about the word activism, I wonder if I'll start with you, Jordan. How can you connect, this meaning of connection to the land to activism? Like, what does having a connection to the land have to do with this type of activism, or any type of activism, and how can it inform it or empower it?
Yeah, I think that really changed for me when, I started taking the initiative to really learn about the lands that I was recreating on. Even though I know and knew that I was Lakota and Indigenous and where I came from, it was really important, to speak with other relatives from other parts of the country, like Jolie from Indigenous Women Hike, who was hugely inspirational for me, and learning about the Indigenous place names of the trails that we run on, that we hike on, that we camp on, that we're visiting and recreating on. And it's really important that once you understand and learn the history of the Indigenous people that belong to those lands that were stolen from them, it gives you a deeper connection to those lands and a deeper appreciation and respect for the lands. And as we move forward as people, as activists, as voices and leaders and organizers, it's important for us that we see that as a whole when we're organizing and speaking to the injustices happening and protecting Unchimaka, Grandmother Earth. And so understanding that has really kind of just been instrumental with everything that I do, every panel that I'm on, with every post that I put on social media. I always try to give credit and recognition to where I'm posting from, where I'm speaking from, where the photo was taken. And hopefully it inspires other people to do the same thing. And in connecting that with activism, having running be the tool and, purpose for me to do what I love of running, my passion, but also connecting it with the very things that are important to me, to my family, to our communities, and for next generations. It just makes it that much easier to combine the two when we're speaking about it as a whole. Because for me, Mitakoye Yasin, we are all related. This work that I do, this work that we all are doing in our communities, whether it's for racial, social, climate, economic justice, it's all related, and it's all protecting our people and our next generations and for a better future.
Yeah. It sounds like one of the biggest things it gives you is a sense of identity, and I feel like more than ever right now, I feel like not a lot of people can say they really have a sense of identity, a sense of cultural identity. Because people aren't very connected to the land in the way that you speak of, and really not connected to themselves, and so where having that connection, I feel like it really gives you that sense of identity, and when you have that identity, I feel like that's when you can really start to speak out for injustices, because you're taking responsibility, you know who you are, and you can start to take action, as opposed to when you don't know who you are. Anthony, I wanted to ask you the same thing, like what, in the change that you try to bring about in your community. You work a lot with the youth and with nonprofit organizations. What do you think you know, basically the same idea. You know, what is running do for you, or why specifically running is it a good tool for what you do?
Um, you know, I never thought of it as a form of activism. You know, running has just always been a part of, you know, who I was, you know, who you are as a person. You know, when you're set to foot to the land, and you're walking or you're running, it really helps you connect and be a part of this, you know, wherever it is that you come from.
Yeah.
But just I always felt like just that simple act of being able to do, you know, something that you enjoy. It may be difficult for a lot of folks, but once they get going, once they start to feel it, everything within themselves just, you know, it gets stronger and stronger. But with that being said, I know that, you know, as running and as runners begin to move into that more um, making sure that their messages, as like I mentioned before, that the runners were messengers, that we can carry messages that to help, you know, inspire other people to figure out what they can do to help make change in this world. One of the things that when we did the video there with Aire Libre is that it was just really just to bring them here and to have them experience what it's like being here, living here. I think that our life of just being able to do what we do here is part of that resistance, part of that movement to not allow, you know, these for us here being along the border there, for that border wall to really go up, for the constant militarization of our lands out here. It's been scary at at points, but at times I think that's something that we always go to is running. Just recently throughout this pandemic that I was approached by an elder, and they said, you know, once everything's kind of calmed down, we should do a run. We should do a run to one of our sacred mountains, offer a prayer, offer blessings, and it's a moment. That when we do this, we don't, you know, I know it, we don't share it like on like social media or anything like that, but we know that that's a way that we can continue to build ourselves within utilizing our own practices and it just comes from running. So
Yeah.
it's really evolved, and my way of viewing it has evolved, because it just always for me was just about running, about competing too.
Yeah, that's interesting, you know, and I think it's crazy what you just said, you know, that just existing, you know, just living on that land is part of the resistance, you know. I don't know if I'm pretty sure you can relate, Jordan, with, you know, just the idea of, you know, native lands, how they're not respected, you know, especially thinking about the pipeline and other efforts to kind of intrude on that land. Like eventually just living where you are is activism, you know. I feel like we can I feel like we can think of activism not in the general sense of, you know, going out and demanding something, but you can also think about just existing, you know. I don't know if you've ever thought about it that way, Jordan, or if you can say anything about that. Can you hear me, Jordan? Oh, okay. Let's see. I think you're muted.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't unmute myself.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of am like indifferent about that word activism. Like activism is like, you know, what we see on the news and how we're being labeled, and what we saw for Standing Rock as our relatives were trying to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline and protecting, you know, our water, our first medicine. You know, I really see us as being protectors and carrying on that resilience and strength that our ancestors, you know, gave us and fought for us to have, to keep surviving and being resilient and carrying that strength. And, you know, running for me is healing. Running for me is, you know, now, with trying to have these discussions within the running community, is running is, you know, a way to educate. Running is trying to spread that medicine that we need in this world right now. and connecting through running and talking about these issues and running for people who have been taken, due to historical violence, is a way for us to express through running, through our voice, what's in our heart, and a way to send prayers. And that's sorry, my cat just jumped on me. And that's a way for us to share that message and share that medicine, and to bring allies and to have these discussions so that we can create, a better future, better and safer future.
So then what is it about? So you've both you and Anthony, you've talked about, running is your passion, it's just what you do, and it's the way that you've responded to a lot of these things. But, what do you think is about running that has kind of like a power to mean something more, as opposed to the traditional? I think if we start to think of the ways of, I agree. I don't really like the word activism too much, but we think of traditional activism, it's always been large groups of people marching. And, I think if we dissect that a little bit, I think it's kind of curious how, large trends towards something are always called movements. And I think it's curious to think that, why movement? What about movement has that power? Recently we had a live session with I think it was Sanjay Rawal, and he said that, if all the politicians got in a group together and started running, they would completely change the way they think, and there would be, more action, and there would be more change. So I wonder if both of you, I understand that running is your passion, but I wonder if you could just, if you've thought about it at all, or just can you speak on that? What about running have you seen in your runs with other people, do you think has the power to affect that change? I don't know. Maybe Anthony, you can go first.
Okay. All right. Just thinking about it, when I was competing a lot, and even if it's a big race or if it's a small race, for me it's always been this equalizer of coming together. We're all going to start at the same starting line, and we're all going to finish at the same finish line. So in that sense that we're coming together, and we're we each of us has a mission or a goal or something that we worked on. We worked hard to get to that point. So that's always kind of stuck in me about, but even, I can't, it sometimes sounds naive, when I talk terms, because there are times when I'm out running and, maybe on a path somewhere, and I'm coming across, other folks, for me, I worry because I don't want them to be afraid, because I'm darker, running on the path, where it's not really my neighborhood, so to speak. So it's just strange to me sometimes when I have to go to those spaces. But I think one of the things that I've always seen, it just really helps bring people together after every race, or even getting together to run. Everyone's just so excited about it and happy about it. So when we brought running like that here to my reservation, we started hosting 5Ks, half marathons, organizing, getting it together. I had to go and speak to the communities to ask for the okay to get clearances to utilize a community space. And I really just tried to share with them what it's like getting into that environment, share, that they could see it and they could be a part of it. So when all the runners come that day, they'll see that everyone's just excited, they're happy, they're just full of joy and excitement. And I think that's what I've come to see, like running as a way to bring people together like that.
Yeah. I was kind of, you guys can talk to each other too, and we can just like kind of three-way talk. I don't know if Jordan, you want to speak on that idea?
Yeah, I mean, running has always been a community, and it's been the one that I've felt most accepted in because, I was a runner, and you kind of just, people see the effort you're putting into it and being a team player and cheering others on. It was probably one of the only times where I ever felt more accepted, and I didn't really have to live in two different worlds of being Jordan, the native, and then Jordan trying to like assimilate myself to be accepted, because I knew I was different because of the color of my skin. But at least in running in the places that I was at, you know, the color of my skin didn't make a difference. It was about how I performed and how I showed up that day, and being, you know, part of the team, part of the community. And so as my running, you know, transitioned and I started, you know, raising awareness about the things that I care very much about, missing and murdered Indigenous women and our relatives, you know, I was really kind of shocked at the amount of support that the running community gave this prayer run for our relatives, and the amount of support that came in, and the amount of discussion that happened. And that's continuing to happen. And the fact that it inspired our next generations, like Rosalie Fish, who did the same thing after. Like, it's a community, but it's also the same time, I have to put it into perspective that I am a woman of color, I am a Native woman. And as I'm doing more work to support, you know, this movement of missing and murdered Indigenous women, you know, it has made me more scared as a runner, and worrying more about my safety, and worrying, you know, am I going to be next? Because I am part of those statistics, and have had violence in the family, and have had, you know, loved ones missing and murdered. Like, it's something that weighs heavy on myself as I am putting myself more into this work and advocacy to support the families and the advocates and the organizers. But and then with what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, like,
Yeah.
running in the safety of for Black, Indigenous, brown people, like, it's very different. And that kind of was more like a aha in your face. This is what happens to people of color, and we have to be more careful. We have to kind of have our attention even more out there. And I find that it's kind of taking me away from trying to enjoy just a trail run, and being more aware of my surroundings now, because it has changed. And, you know, it makes me worry, you know, for my friends and relatives that are runners and that are recreating out there, and where it makes me worry about their safety.
Yeah, it's a, you know, I think that's a very important point that you and Anthony talked about. You know, Anthony, when you said right now about you know, how running is just an equalizer, I thought that's a really beautiful idea. You know, just the structure of a run, you start and end the same place. And then now this conversation of being afraid, you know, that it's changing. And something that I thought about when the Ahmaud Arbery incident happened is that, you know, running is often seen, it's advertised as this thing that's free. You know, it's like so simple, just put on a pair of shoes and go out and run. It's the simplest thing you can do. It's, you know, you don't need anything. But I think what we're starting to see is that running isn't free for everyone. You know, there's an emotional cost to it, to a lot of people. And I think it's also interesting to think about, you know, running is, you run in space, and, you know, in space is, there's something interesting about space now, because there's either private or public space. And there's all these sentiments, like what you're describing, Jordan, about these public sentiments that make public space not, you know, kind of hostile and can be dangerous and kind of dissuade people from wanting to run. So with that in mind, you know, I think one of the big lessons I wanted to get out of this conversation, and see if you guys can both talk on it, is, you know, for just people, just individuals, you know, everybody in this talk, what do you know, based on your experiences and thinking about running, what can we do? You know, like what is a good way for us to think about and use something like running to make a statement? And I know we don't want to bring it exactly into the light of let's all be activists, but you know, maybe make a statement to ourselves, maybe make a statement to become more aware of the reality that's really happening. You know, I wonder if either of you have thought about that. You know, it seems like you both are taking these, I don't want to call them risks, but running in places where you feel maybe unwanted or at risk. But is this necessary? You know, do you think this has to happen? Do you think you have to put yourselves out in the open and just do it so people get more used to the idea, or so there's more diversity. I don't know, Anthony, what do you think about that? Oh, sorry. Okay, I keep forgetting to unmute you guys. Sorry.
I think the greatest thing is really being intentional. And I know Jordan mentioned about acknowledging the lands that you're in or that you're going onto. I'm about an hour west of Tucson, Arizona, which is a larger city, where our reservation sits about an hour west of there. And
I'm from Tucson.
That whole place, I mean, every mountain, every stream has an autumn name for it, and that's from our language. And it did get dissected over time, but what we've tried to do is just let people know that what this is, what this means, and I think just being intentional about recognizing those things, and also inviting, always being inviting. I maybe I'm not probably the the best one giving that advice, because I'm always running by myself, but I like when I get out there and I see folks running, like just trying to turn on or being excited about that, because I know it's difficult, especially if you're going on the long run. It can get tough, and any little encouragement helps. I think we've always felt that on the 5K. Somebody, cheering us on. We're complete strangers, but they're cheering us on. But it's, I think it's going to be a long process. But I think that just my what I would like to see is just being more intentional in inviting other people, inviting people who may not have imagined to go running, or and exposing ourselves to these different areas. Yeah, I think ultimately really acknowledging those.
That's interesting. Just a simple act of inviting someone, maybe we're all just a bunch of lonely people that want to get invited to run with someone else,
Yeah.
I feel like that's funny, but I also feel like that's true. So I don't know. Jordan, do you want to comment on that too?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think, it's always nice to go running with people, and I'm very used to just going running on my own. It's a lot easier to do sometimes than trying to like reach out to friends and be like, let's plan a group run or something. But when you do have those group runs, it's always so fun, and it is more safe, and the conversations that come out of it, it's meaningful, and it definitely has even the smallest impacts on us individually. So yeah, I would say being intentional with your runs, even just taking activism out of it, or advocacy, just being intentional, learning the lands that you're running on, or walking or hiking on, inviting people that are in your community that you may have heard about, inviting them for group runs, or going to group runs that you've never signed up before, just to expand your community and your running family. And then if you do want to have it be more purposeful, for me, I made the decision to, I still love to compete and want to train as best I can, but the thing that I care most about is being able to run in prayer and raise awareness for who I'm running for and why I'm running. And I'm going to assume that, trying to make the Olympic trials in the marathon, or, trail championships or something, those goals will happen just as much, maybe because I have this new purpose of running, that I can share this platform with them. But if you have something that you care about, even if it's just you, like I strongly suggest just do it. Like find more information about it, learn about it, support, donate, share. Find the local groups in your community that are speaking about this, the leaders, and going to them and learning more from them. And sharing if you do have a platform, sharing your platform to create space for these things that are happening in our communities, and centering Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant voices. And so I think, this is something that is, still very new to me, but it is beautiful to see this running community, running for Black lives, running for Ahmaud Arbery, running for George Floyd, running for Savannah LaFontaine Gray Wind, and, countless missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. And it's happening more and more. And I think that's just spreading the message. That's creating that awareness that hopefully impacts change that we need.
Have you, for example, ever discovered something about your land while running? Maybe a little meditation you had, or reflection, or something that you were curious about, and then you kind of went into depth with it?
For me, that happened 2 years ago when I was in Phoenix, and I found out that my biological dad is full Dene, and so I kind of always felt this part of me was kind of like missing growing up. Like there was just something about me that like I just didn't know about. And when I finally went to those lands with my partner, I felt this deep connection to those lands, and I couldn't figure out why. And it inspired me to learn more about my Dene roots, and looking back on that history. And it was a landscape and the trails that, really got me to, want to learn more about me as an Indigenous, not just Lakota, but now Dene. And yeah, it's definitely a part that I always reflect on that, made me feel whole finally, that I finally found, that missing piece as to who I was as an Indigenous woman.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anthony, what about you? Have you ever discovered something about, your land or your context, or something? I wasn't running, I was walking, but in Arizona, in the Navajo Nation, near the Navajo Nation, there's these purple hills, and when you wonder, why they're purple, I learned that it's kind of, it turns purple from the waste of kind of like some nuclear waste. So basically, I learned that they were dumping nuclear waste in Indian reservations, and it was creating like a lot of radiation and stuff like that. And it's interesting that just like a simple, you kind of have to go out there and find out for yourself what's going on, So I don't know. I just wanted to interject there. But Anthony, have you had a similar experience? Let me unmute you because I figured out.
Gosh, that's a tough one because every time I go running, like I'll be on a trail or mostly dirt roads out here on a reservation. But I'll go off trail, and then I'll hit a cow trail, and just it's open range out here. There's cattle just roaming around, and it's just always interesting when I get to go on those trails and kind of like walking their paths the way that they go, because after they've walked so many times on the same route, they really make a great path, a running path. It's a little jagged, it's a little got to watch my step here and there, but it's always just fun to do. But I think that I never had an experience like you experienced about Purple Mountains, but growing up, I always we always pray to do well, to work hard, and something that I always carry was a plant here. Grab it, and when the rains come, that's what the land smells like. So you grab it and you hold it, and as you're running, you can smell from it, and you smell the rain. So it really just helps you just reflect on those times, because it's our rainy seasons are coming up. The monsoons are coming, and it marks New Year or the autumn. That's our New Year. So we're coming into that time right now. The weather is really hot, so it's going to start to change here. But all of it is just really empowering when you just allow yourself to open up to the land like that. When I was working with the community action program, we did a lot of growing, and we did a lot of wild harvesting of our desert foods. So that always really helped me to kind of get more connected to the land. So when I'm running, I'll see those the development of these different plants. Like, okay, they're starting out, they're not ready to harvest just yet, but they're moving along. And then I'll share that with the people. As I'm running, I'll take a photo. It's it's coming up. It's coming up. You know, the season's here. Autumn season's just passed. Now we're coming up to the saguaro fruit season. So it's all of it is just kind of connected. It all comes together throughout the years, and it's just, you know, a beautiful time when you get to experience, you know, the land.
Yeah, that's great. So I just I wanted to pass this on to everybody listening. So Zoom has this function where you can raise your hand, and I wanted to give this opportunity to see if anybody had any questions for Jordan or Anthony, or maybe just a topic that you've been thinking about. So there's, in the participant section, there's a little there's an option. If you click on participants, there's an option where you can raise your hand. And so if anybody is interested, you know, in asking a question, you guys can raise your hand, or if you don't figure it out, you can just drop a question on the chat. But meanwhile, I just I kind of just wanted to close this conversation with just an idea, you know, that right now there's a lot of stuff going on in the U.S. and around the world. There's a lot of protests. You know, a lot of people are angry, and for good reason. You know, there's a lot of racism and inequality and injustice that's been happening, and unfortunately, I feel like that's just it's going to keep happening. You know, historically, I feel like we have to figure out a way to start dealing with it. And I think one of the ways we can do it is if we realize that we're going to become the models of the future. You know, I think it's interesting to think about that. Our children and our children's children are going to see us and how we behave and how we act, and that's going to be the world for them. You know, the way that the world around us is right now, we're going to basically be the world for them. So I just think that puts a lot of responsibility, you know, not as activists, but it does put some responsibility on us to start thinking about our actions, to start thinking about how we treat people. And I think some of the ideas that Jordan and Anthony talked about are really interesting. You know, we can start to invite people. We can start to be more open to people. I feel like that's activism in its own way, in a society that makes us, you know, want to take everything for ourselves and protect ourselves. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to close with that thought. We have some questions, so let me unmute Aime.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Anthony. Great to see you again, Anthony. And thanks for your words. I can totally relate to what you have said today. In my experience, I feel running turned me into an environmentalist because it has always been my connection to the land and to the wilderness. I feel it's a way in which I interact with the land. My partner Mao says that running allows us to dance with the land, and I totally agree with that. And so, I mean, it's more of a comment, but if you want to comment on my comment, that would be great. It's just how like this part of running has turned me into an environmentalist. In your case, like, I don't know what kind of a flair did running turn on you in particular, or something like that. Any comment you want to share? If not, just wanted to share that.
I don't know. Do either of you have a response? No.
I think Anthony's trying to say something.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I was just gonna say that when I started running to compete, it was you know, a form of and when you're growing, you want to be good at something. You know, I wasn't good at school, so I had to work in other areas and try to, you know, make up for some of that part. But it was really just to try to, you know, win and be great at what you did, because I felt like, you know, growing up in, you know, in a family where, you know, we had a lot of hard times. We had our shared hard times and our shared, you know, experiences of this hardships, and I wanted to uplift my family. I wanted them to feel inspired that, you know, this isn't always going to be our life. Our life is going to get better. So that really motivated me to, you know, to do well. And of course, you know, look at college as an option once I was able to get there. So it started at that point, you know, early on, was just wanting to inspire my my mom, even though she's the strongest woman ever. Inspire my siblings to that everything will be okay. Work a little harder, that's okay. We'll get there. But ever since then, it just grew to the community as a whole. It be within my family. I want it to be throughout the community and kind of have this like ripple effect. And I hope that's what I've done. I do hope that it's come to that, because sometimes I'll be driving here on a reservation and it's really large, so I'll pick up a hitchhiker, maybe a young person, and I'll introduce myself and they'll be like, oh yeah, you're the runner. So I hope that we inspire some people here and the other people throughout the country.
Great. I don't know, Jordan, did you have a comment, or should I move on to another question?
Yeah, I mean, I am pretty much answering the same way as Anthony did. Running, I wanted to do it because it connected me to my mom and my grandfather, and I got to go on my first run with my grandfather and have that connection. And then, as I got a little older, it transitioned to, I want to inspire my cousins, my nieces, and then younger generations. And as I got a little bit more older, I was still focused on trying to run and compete and hit my goals and times, but I wanted to be that Indigenous representation for Indigenous people. And then that, I saw someone had a question about what was that moment or decision that made the move from running for themselves to running for awareness. And that really kind of just began when I was said enough is enough, seeing our missing and murdered Indigenous relatives just being forgotten and being taken from our communities and our families. Every single day I was seeing a new missing persons flyer, and hearing the testimonials from the families, like it was just heartbreaking. And I couldn't tweet about it. I couldn't share about it. I couldn't write a blog about it. I couldn't sign petitions about it anymore. I couldn't donate or fundraise anymore. I had to do something more to try and break beyond the Indigenous circles of MMIW being talked about constantly, because we are so impacted, whether you know someone directly or it happened to you and you had a loved one taken. And that's what changed for me. Was I was tired of seeing our own relatives doing all the work themselves, taking that responsibility to go on search parties and leading those search parties to look for their loved ones, and the police not being held accountable and the government not being held accountable. And that's when I decided to share running with this passion of advocacy.
Great. Thank you very much for both of your responses. I'm gonna unmute Rebecca.
Hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for your words and being the incredible people that you are, sharing running and standing up. And my question is, as we're in such an incredible world moment of sharing, especially for young people, what would be your biggest recommendation for how to share running with those outside of the running community and feel the inspiration and connection that I think ties into caring about others and caring about the earth?
Let's see. Anthony, do you wanna respond first?
Sure. There's a saying that I've heard for some time now, that when we're running, our one step is a prayer, and then with your other step is a blue.
Oh, sorry, Anthony, you have to unmute yourself.
Did I start over? Did you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. No, that it was just it's always been a way to help connect, to the land, because it just seems to inspire from there, and things off within yourself, within your own life, that next all of a sudden you are doing these other things, like not knowingly ahead of time, but you are inspiring other people. So I guess my advice would just be just keep it going, keep it up, and find it what helps to inspire you, because that's definitely going to help to inspire the next person and the next person. just having that great understanding, as you begin to move across the land on foot.
Yeah. Jordan, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, if there's something that you believe in, speak to it. I say this a lot, but it starts with you by saying it and speaking it out loud, not inside your head, not quietly, speaking it out loud into the universe so that creator hears what you want, what you care about. And that'll be the first step in moving forward and being proactive and taking action and being an ally, being a good relative. And having that connection to the lands when you're walking, when you're running, when you're hiking, having that understanding and appreciation for your surroundings and the history that belongs there. Our ancestors are still in these grounds, in these lands, and having that appreciation and understanding for it. And, as you see that beauty, when we're talking about climate justice and environmentalism, you can't have climate justice without racial justice, without social justice, without economic justice, and all of it is connected. It is all related. And so I think, when you speak to it, when you talk about it, when you're proactive with it, you're going to inspire that next person who may have felt quiet and shy to speak to these things and want to be proactive about it. And when they see you doing it, they're going to want to do it. And it's going to create that beautiful ripple effect of change and influence that we need in this world right now. And we are starting to see that. And I really hope it continues.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your responses. I'm going to unmute the next question. Dan, can you hear us?
Hey everyone.
Hello.
And hey, Anthony. Always a pleasure to see you, and thank you for all those beautiful words. Anthony, I just wanted to touch back on a subject that we talked about when we were visiting you, and this quote that really stayed with me after our visit to the nation. And I think you were kind of touching on this in your previous question. But it's where you were saying that when you're running, with one foot you're giving, and with the other you're receiving, and that's kind of a prayer that you do when you're running. And I think, I don't know, that stayed with me because of course, there's a lot of stuff to be active about nowadays in the world we're living in, but I truly believe that there's a lot of wisdom in that, in saying, like, okay, we have to balance out what we're taking from the world and what we're giving back in every sense. I don't know, particularly thinking about like an environmental thing where we're taking so much from our earth and not giving back enough. And I think that reflects in many other aspects. And that related to the fact, and as you know, a lot of what we do at Aire Libre is related to recognizing these bits of wisdom in ancestral knowledge and really highlighting them and relating them to our modern context, because it kind of brings us back to our essence as beings and how we should relate to each other and to the earth. So I was just wondering if you could just go a bit deeper into that and explain what this quote I just said means to you.
Hold on, Anthony, I'm unmuting you. There we go.
I think it's always been ingrained in ourselves when we not in competing, like running, but when we run for prayer here in our communities. I know for myself as a runner, the people the elders, they talk to us, they share with us what our purpose is for. And as a runner, and when I'm speaking to other runners that are there to help carry these prayers, I tell them, we're first thanking them, but really just acknowledging what they're doing. Like they're giving of themselves so much, whether it be a prayer for an individual, a community, whatever it might be. And as runners, that's what we do. We give of ourselves so much. And I think I mean, Jordan is a great example of utilizing the platform and really amplifying that message of MMIW, and it's just been, you know, a really like a something that brings that conversation to another level. And even through running, it's like brings it to this hopefully for a lot of people a better understanding. So when we're running, you know, we give ourselves, we're running in prayer, and then with words that our elders or spiritual leaders are giving us, they're blessing us. And even the community, when they're offering, you know, good words, you know, they're blessing us as well, because they know what we're doing, what we're giving of ourselves, and they really just respect and admire that from all the runners. So it's and it does definitely would go hand in hand. You know, when folks are out there advocating, they're, you know, fighting, they work hard, and a lot of times we forget of ourselves because our hearts are so ingrained into the purpose we're fighting for. You know, forget, you know, to take care of ourselves. So it's sometimes it's good to just remember that and accept it. That way you can continue to fight.
Thank you. I'm just going to get to these last two questions we have, and then we'll close our session. So Angel Castañón and Gabby Garcia, I wonder if you can hear me.
Hey, hello, Jordan and Anthony. It's been a pleasure listening to you. So I have this thing. So I appreciate everything that you have talked to us about, but I feel like really I feel empathy for everything that you've been talking, but at the end I feel like I'm an outsider of this thing. So I'm like this guy, like I haven't been there through feeling that I could be like kidnapped or assaulted, or like I'm blonde, I'm white, I'm a man, I'm heterosexual, and I don't have like any money problems. So I feel like this very privileged guy. So I got I want to be like helping and to make a better world, but I don't feel like I have like this. I haven't been through any of those problems, so I just happen to understand them, but like from the other side of the spectrum or the street, you know. So what would you say for all of us? What would you feel better, or what would you feel that we should be doing?
Great, thank you for the question. Maybe Jordan, you can expand on this.
Yeah, I would say, you know, this is the time to become an ally, to become a relative to, you know, our communities, and to support us, to help center us. And I appreciate that, you know, you call out your own privilege, and many people are starting to do that and starting to realize that they do have this privilege, that life is different for them than Black and brown, Indigenous, immigrant folks are going through and living every single day. And, you know, this speaks to a much larger discussion that we could speak probably for hours on. And that's, you know, really addressing, you know, colonization, colonialism, and how it's taken over the world and has rooted a lot of places in genocide and injustice. And a lot of communities of color have been oppressed by this system, systemic injustice, systemic racism. And so we have to start from the very bottom, from the very roots, and dismantling white supremacy. And, you know, that's going to take a lot of work. And I can post in the chat a bunch of books for you, a bunch of podcasts for everyone. And they're a list that I'm even reading and going through, because I want to know, I want to be a better ally. I want to be a better, you know, supporter to Black Lives Matter because it's not just my fight. It's not just the injustices my community is facing. And so I think it just speaks to you, you know, calling out your own privilege and wanting to be there to support, as many others do. And it's listening to conversations like this and signing up for it. It's finding other, you know, live sessions that are happening, to listen to these discussions, to listen to Black, Brown, and Indigenous voices. Another great resource is Alison Tessier, Meaning Through Movement. I highly suggest looking that up and learning from that platform, as more discussions like this are going to continue to happen. And so I think just being proactive and looking for these resources to understand and commit to anti-racism work, and learning how to be a good relative and a good ally to these movements, you know, is gonna, like I keep saying, it's gonna lead to that change and impact and influence that we need in this world to create a better and safer world and environment, not only for now, but for our next generation, so that they don't have to see these injustices anymore.
Great. Yeah, and you know, just to piggyback on that, I think the best thing we can all do is just create awareness. You know, a lot of people, like what Angel and Gabby were talking about, aren't aware of their own privilege and their own place. So, you know, talking to people about these issues is I think very important. That's how people become aware. And we've passed a little bit of time, Anthony. So I'm just gonna move on to the next question, and maybe you both can answer this. Let's see. I'm gonna unmute Dylan. Dylan, can you hear me?
Hi, good see Opa. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jordan and Anthony, for sharing your words, and thank you to Aire Libre for hosting this panel. As runners, we never know when an injury becomes serious, because we're always pushing ourselves each day. So my question is relating to how you've handled injury and dealing with that state of mind. I myself was a professional runner and have been coming back from a serious injury, which took being able to build my mental strength and emotional strength back up, as running was also my traditional way of connection. In what ways do you find strength to push through injury and hard days?
Great question. Anthony, do you want to comment on that?
Okay. Yeah, I think, especially when you're coming off of an injury, it's always just great to get down to the basics, get down to the very fundamentals of why you even, you know, tie your laces every day to go out and run. Because if you start keeping in that mindset of, well, I will run this time, or I gotta get this, you know, get this point or this goal, it really works against you in some fashions. If you start to really take a step back, just allow it to, you know, come the way it's always come naturally. It's just, you know, connecting back to your purpose of running. You know, not the times or the accolades that come with, you know, because I know you're a great runner, Dylan. So you know that you have a lot of accomplishments. But that's, you know, that's just some advice that I would give, because, you know, no one's immune to injuries, so we always have to find our own ways to adjust and really, you know, build up our strength again. And a lot of times it's mental strength that we need to work on as well. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's just when you are injured, you know, practicing self-care and investing in yourself, to allow yourself to be able to heal and to have patience and to not rush it, and to know.
Wait. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me? It's, you know, practicing self-care and healing, and giving yourself that time and having patience to heal, but also to use that time to invest in yourself and the things that you can be doing as an individual, for your, you know, your mind, body, and your spirit. And knowing that, you know, you're running for your people, and that you will have a chance, the time will come when you will be able to put back your shoes, put them back on, lace up, and get back out the door and run those miles and compete and run for whatever you're running for, and whoever you're running for. But I always kind of draw in on that strength of, you know, I'm a 4th generation runner, and, you know, I need to take care of myself, And I'm gonna feel that connection to my family, and I have running to, you know, hopefully inspire our little ones and our next generations. And so they give me all the greatest strength and inspiration to have patience with an injury. I'm like going on 9 months with Achilles tendonitis right now. So it's been a slow comeback these last couple months, and I can't push it, I can't rush it. But it's definitely kind of a waiting game, but just knowing who I'm running for and why, it's giving me that strength to make sure I put myself first.
Great. So I'm just gonna unmute the last question. I hope it's more of a comment. I'm unmuting Rosie Carey, or can you hear me?
Oh yeah, hello. Thank you for having this conversation. And I was just wondering, when you, I decided not to run competitively in college. So when you're not running competitively, is there still a way to like make a change or advocacy with your running?
Well,
Yes.
go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, we all saw it for Ahmaud Arbery. Like, no one was competing that day. They ran 2.23 miles for the day that he was taken from his family and his community, and it had a huge impact, and it created a big awareness. And on May 5th, National Day of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, you know, that wasn't a race, but I ran 27 miles, 27 Indigenous relatives, women, men, two-spirits, you know, from our communities. And, you know, I did it for Global Running Day and dedicated all my miles to George Floyd, you know, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, James Scurlock, Ahmaud Arbery, Nina Pop. And, you know, it has an impact, it has meaning. And as long as you're doing it with good intentions, and with focus, and knowing that you're running and sharing and creating this space for something other than yourself, that's going to have meaning and purpose to it. And that's why I do it. And so, yeah, you don't have to be a competitive runner. I just made the decision to share that competitive platform with the things that I care so much about. And it had an impact. But, you know, I've seen so many runners, especially in the last month, just dedicating their runs, and I'm seeing it on Strava who they dedicated their miles for. And it's so inspiring, but also, you know, just really heartwarming to see that our community we care, that people care.
Great. So with that, last thought, I just want to thank everybody for joining this call. You know, these are going to keep being tumultuous times. I thank you very much, Jordan, and I think we lost Anthony in the backseat of the car, but I thank Anthony also. You know, I just hope that everybody got something out of this conversation. You know, both our guests said some really incredible things that honestly I'm going to take back with me. And, you know, I think we can, one of the big lessons is, you know, just, I guess, bravery and keeping doing, not being afraid, speaking out, and, you know, being friendly. You know, I think we got something out of kindness out of this, you know, being kind to other people, I think is one of the most powerful things we can do right now when there's just an incredible lack of kindness. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, and thank you guys. And I hope you all stay safe. And I hope you all go for a reflective run tomorrow, but a hashtag stay home. All right. Well, thank you very much.